Thank you, Mr. Chimavi, for this opportunity. I'd like to start by saying that the Zimbabwe Hospital Doctors Association comes to this particular platform on a very sad note in the history of the health delivery system in Zimbabwe. I think it has been a very long time since we experienced such a crippling crisis, particularly in the dollarized environment. I want to tell you that the doctors, the junior doctors, are still on strike. And the strike is now is almost entering its third week. And I want to give you a background of where we are coming from and how we've reached the point that we are now. On the 1st and 2nd of October 2014, the Zimbabwe Hospital Doctors Association members staged a two-day strike, which was meant to bring to the attention of the employer, which is the Health Services Board, and the Ministry of Health and Child Care, to say that there is really need for them to review the working conditions of the doctors. And just for the benefit of those who are not in the know, currently doctors are earning $282 as basic salary. They earn $250 as housing allowance. But if you are a doctor who is living in the hospital facilities, like the flats that are in the various referral hospitals, it means that you will not get the $250 because the state automatically charges $250 for doctors who are earning $282 as basic salary. So this is the background of what the doctors are getting now. But just following on the chronology of events, we also wish to highlight that after the two-day strike, we held a meeting with the Health Services Board and the Ministry of Health and Child Care on the 18th of October 2014. This particular meeting was held in order to find a lasting solution to the problems that doctors are facing currently. But let me just highlight that after that meeting, in fact, in that meeting, the employer refused to acknowledge the notice that we had given them for job action, because we had given the employer 14 days ultimatum to respond to the issues of the doctors. So the Health Services Board refused to acknowledge the notice. Secondly, the employer in that meeting really agreed that there was need to have a protective mechanism for doctors. That is, we're talking about the risk allowance, considering the outbreak of various contagious diseases such as Ebola and so forth. In that particular meeting, the Health Services Board also noted that the government accommodation was exorbitant, because there was really no rationale of charging $250 housing allowance to someone who earns $282 as basic salary. Fourthly, the Health Services Board unequivocally refused to guarantee that the salaries of doctors will be reviewed, sorry, and that any negotiations should be done through the bipartite negotiating forum. And just lastly, as the association, we also noted that the behavior, or rather the attitude of the Health Services Board has been retrogressive. In fact, when we have been going to several meetings with them, when they indicate right, then they turn left. we have held a series of meetings since the first meeting that we held on the 18th of October. And in one meeting that was chaired by the Minister of Health and Child Care, Dr. Paranyatwa, we agreed that the doctors' on-call allowances will be reviewed from the current 35 cents an hour to $10 per hour. I think you can see the disparities that are there, and also to reintroduce the risk allowance. The risk allowance was scrapped during the Zim dollar era when there was hyperinflation. So when we had the dollarized environment, the employer never bothered to reinstate the risk allowance. So these are the things that we agreed with the Health Services Board. So as a response, particularly to the meetings that we have had, I think we've had several forums that we've also met with the journalists, but just to say that the Health Services Board, instead of negotiating with the doctors, in fact flighted an advert in the Sunday Mail saying that the strike that the doctors were holding was illegal, only for the association to remind them that Section 65, subsection 3 of the Constitution, guarantees, every citizen the right to collective job action. So really, the strike by the doctors, and contrary to some reports that it's the strike by junior doctors. In fact, I think if you visit some of the media outlets today, you realize that not only are the referral hospitals affected, but also including the district hospitals that, or in fact, we are expecting all senior doctors to be part of the strike by end of day Thursday, because they've already written an ultimatum to say that if you do not you do not attend to the issues that are being raised by junior and middle level doctors, then you have no option but to join, because consequently there is now too much workload on the senior doctors. They are saying we cannot be doing the work that we used to do when we were junior doctors. And you see most of them are consultants, so they won't be able to attend to this. So really, this is the background. So maybe just to touch on the issue of employment and unemployment. I think just from the figures that I was giving you, you could easily see that if a doctor, because when a doctor is on call, it means he is working from 6 p.m. to the following morning, 6 a.m. And this particular doctor has left a family at home. And he goes to work for 35 cents times 12 hours. So you can do the calculations and see when you are earning 35 cents an hour times 5 hours, how much is that? And that is the amount, and that particular doctor, cannot use public transport sometimes, because sometimes on call is during the night and he has to drive to work. So the fuel that the doctor uses to drive to work is much more than what he's going to earn for working for 12 hours. I think I was able to make that clear. So like what Mr. Chimavi rightfully said, it is really slave wages, because you cannot expect doctors to continue to survive under such situations. And for doctors to earn $282 as basic salary really is an exploitation, which is also contrary to even the current economic blueprints like Zim Asset, which endeavor to provide basic health services, under the social services cluster. So really, we are concerned as the Zimbabwe Hospital Doctors Association to say that even looking at the trend of employment in Zimbabwe, that in the mid-1970s, that's when Zimbabwe really started to experience drastic job losses when we had the sanctions and also the war was intensifying. And we also recognize, the erratic growth in the 1980s, which worsened the problem. But I think in the 1990s, when Zimbabwe had the structural adjustment, we would see that market forces replaced the control system because of the ISAP. I think most of you are aware of that. So it was assumed that as the public sector contracted, the private sector would open up, avenues for employment for young people particularly. But it was not to be. In fact, between 1991 and 1995, we've seen that Zimbabwe recorded more than 40,000 job losses. And between 2000 and 2001, we have estimates of more than 100,000 people who have lost their jobs. And I think it's a common phenomenon now that you will see people, losing their jobs. But what is worrying is we have people who are employed, like doctors, for example, who are not able to send their children to decent schools. For example, for junior doctors, because they are under housemanship, they are not allowed to work anywhere else outside government for 2 years. So the reason why you see senior doctors are not joining junior doctors in this particular issue is that senior doctors, most of them are consultants. They actually come to work for government on contract basis. They negotiate what they earn with the government. So this is the difference between the junior doctors. Well, senior doctors can go and work. Some of them, they've got their own surgeries. So this is the situation that we have. So really, you tend to lose, the difference between someone who is employed and those who are not employed. That even some of those who are not employed but are eking out a living out of, the informal means, like maybe what Mr. Wazai here shall share with you. Really, so it also shows that the economy will not grow because the labor market is a critical component in terms of when we want to talk about economic growth, income distribution, as well as when we are talking about poverty issues. So if the labor market continues to shrink, it means that the economy will not grow. It means that we will not generate more income and poverty will continue to worsen. So lastly, let me just say that I just want to take you back to say that the government of Zimbabwe spends about $50,000 to educate one doctor. And after spending so much, the government is so reluctant, to hold on to people that they've so much spent for, and just let them go to other countries, neighboring countries. I can tell you that we have several junior doctors who are being offered opportunities outside the country, particularly South Africa, Namibia, and Botswana, because as junior doctors they are also able to go and work to those countries that recognize the UZ degree as part of their housemanship. So what it means is, if the government continues to neglect, the issues that are being raised by junior doctors, you will see an influx, rather an outflux of junior doctors leaving the government institutions, going to neighboring countries where they can earn more. So this is the situation that, as the Zimbabwe Hospital Doctors Association, we find ourselves in, and that the nation of Zimbabwe finds itself in. And more importantly, the suffering that is being caused by the government to the general population who are visiting public hospitals to receive treatment, but they cannot. In fact, you would find that maybe other people are losing their lives in the process. So really, this is the situation that we find ourselves in. So I think I will stop here.